Welcome to the Tech Room, your weekly breakdown of semiconductors, AI, and gaming. I'm Jess.
And I'm Mark. This is the podcast brought to you by SBN Media Studio.
Today on the show, we have a packed agenda. In semiconductors, the memory supercycle and the NAND price shock. In AI, the geopolitical battle over AI accelerators like the NVIDIA H200. And in gaming, well, because AI hardware demand is eating the entire silicon supply chain, we're dedicating that segment entirely to global fab expansions.
The thread connecting it all this week, AI demand is rewiring the entire silicon supply chain from HBM4 ramps and NAND price shocks to new fabs in Dresden and Dalara, while export policy and high-NA EUV redraw who can build the most advanced chips. Let's dive in.
So let's start with the absolute center of gravity in the semiconductor world right now, which is the memory supercycle.
Oh, yeah. It's wild out there right now.
It really is. I mean, if you are waiting to upgrade your company's server racks or, you just buy a new solid-state drive, you are effectively collateral damage of the AI boom.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
We're seeing how this, insatiable demand for AI compute is just violently distorting the traditional memory market.
Right, because it's driving these breathtaking engineering leaps on one hand, but it's absolutely punishing downstream buyers on the other.
Exactly. And on the bleeding edge, the engineering really is historic. According to official announcements from Micron Technology, they've commenced high-volume shipment of their HBM4.
Yeah, the 36-gigabyte 12-high memory.
Right, which is strictly designed for NVIDIA's Vera Rubin architecture.
And, the physics of this are just staggering to me. They're vertically stacking 16 of these dies in some samples, but even the 12-high stack is crazy.
Well, wait, they're hitting pin speeds of over 11 gigabits per second, right?
Yeah, over 11. Which pushes the total memory bandwidth to greater than 2.8 terabytes per second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a 2.3x improvement over the older HBM3E. Just the alignment precision to stack these dies without thermal defects is mind-blowing.
That's insane. And, obviously SK Hynix isn't just sitting still while Micron does this.
Definitely not.
The Inc. actually reported some fascinating supply chain data on SK Hynix. They're drastically revising their production targets for their 6th-generation 10-nanometer DRAM.
Right, their 1C node.
Exactly. They were aiming for 90,000 wafers a month, but now they are doubling that target. They want 170,000 to 200,000 wafers per month by early 2027.
Which is a massive capital shift. But they really have no choice,
Why do you say that?
Well, they reportedly secured 70% of NVIDIA's initial orders for HBM4. But to build that HBM, you absolutely need the underlying base dies.
Oh, I see. So they're scaling the 1C DRAM strictly to feed their own HBM4 assembly lines.
Exactly. They have to maintain their lead in those base dies, or they bottleneck themselves.
Right. But, okay, let me push back a little here.
Sure, go ahead.
If HBM is basically sucking up all the wafer capacity, aren't regular enterprise IT and consumer storage buyers effectively subsidizing the AI boom?
Oh, 100%. It's brutal.
Because Ellen Ford just reported on the collateral damage for NAND. They're forecasting that NAND flash contract prices are going to surge a staggering 70 to 75% in Q2 of 2026.
Wow. And that's on top of the jump we already saw in Q1, right?
Yeah, the 33 to 38% jump from Q1, it's just compounding.
That's just devastating for general IT.
It is. Memory makers are prioritizing the high-margin HBM, and it's leaving standard industrial modules with, 20-week lead times.
So essentially, the rest of the tech world is paying the tax for AI's memory needs.
Exactly. Now, all those high-bandwidth memory chips have to be attached to something, right?
Right, the actual accelerators.
Right, and this week in AI accelerators, there is a massive geopolitical tug-of-war happening.
Oh, you're talking about the H200 export rules?
Yeah, it's such a bizarre stalemate. The U.S. is basically opening the door slightly for export, but China is slamming it shut.
So break down the new U.S. policy for us. What changed?
Well, the Federal Register officially published a rule moving the NVIDIA H200 and the AMD MI325X exports to China and Macau.
Moving them from the presumption of denial list.
Exactly, to a case-by-case review.
Okay.
But there are strict limits. The total processing performance, or TPP, has to be under 21,000.
Okay.
And the DRAM bandwidth has to be below 6,500 gigabytes per second. But here's the most fascinating part of the rule.
What's that?
Exports to China cannot exceed 50% of the volume shipped to U.S. customers.
Wait, really? A 50% cap?
Yeah. It's a mathematically enforced compute disparity. The U.S. is ensuring China can never scale a cluster larger than domestic U.S. companies.
Wow, that is a brilliant, if controversial, piece of economic statecraft.
It really is. But China's not just taking it lying down. Financial Times and Tom's Hardware are highlighting a massive countermove.
Right, they're blocking customs.
Exactly. China has essentially blocked H200 customs clearance entirely. They are forcing domestic reliance.
This is a huge windfall for Huawei, at least on paper.
Yeah, Huawei expects their AI chip revenue to surge 60% to $12 billion in 2026.
Driven by those 950 PR inference processors, right?
Yeah. But let me ask you this, from an engineering reality standpoint. Despite that $12 billion revenue surge, Huawei's most advanced 2026 chips still only deliver about 40% of the memory bandwidth of NVIDIA's Blackwell B200.
Right, which is a massive bottleneck.
So Huawei can use networking to cluster a large number of weaker chips together, but without access to advanced memory, won't they hit a hard thermal and power wall eventually?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't just throw thousands of less efficient chips into a room and not expect the building to melt.
Right.
Without the advanced memory bandwidth, the compute cores are just starved for data. They sit idle, wasting power, and cooling that many clustered chips introduces crippling latency.
It's just not sustainable at scale.
Exactly. Speaking of the chips powering all of this and, the struggle to get advanced silicon, let's talk about the physical manufacturing footprint being built to solve this.
Oh, yes. The global fab expansions.
Right, because billions of dollars are physically reshaping the global supply chain right now. Let's start with Intel.
What's the latest there?
Well, Token Ring AI notes that Intel just completed acceptance testing of ASML's $400 million TwinStan EXE 5200B.
Wait, $400 million for one machine?
Yeah, a single lithography machine. It's their high-NA EUV system.
Okay, so for the non-engineers listening, what does high-NA EUV actually mean? Why is it worth $400 million?
Sure. High-NA stands for high numerical aperture. Basically, it allows for 8-nanometer resolution in a single exposure.
A single exposure.
As opposed to double patterning. TSMC and Samsung have to run wafers through their older machines twice to get features that small.
Oh, and that probably increases the chance of defects, right?
Exactly. Every extra step adds defect risk and slows down production. So hitting that 8-nanometer resolution in one shot gives Intel a critical technical window for its 14A node.
To leapfrog TSMC.
Yeah, that's the goal. It marks the official start of what they're calling the Angstrom era.
That's incredible. But, it's not just about these tiny bleeding-edge nodes either. There's a huge strategic diversification happening geographically.
Oh, for sure. Europe is making a huge power play right now.
Yeah, according to the Taipei Times, Infineon is opening its €5 billion smart power fab in Dresden on July 2nd, 2026.
And that's backed by the EU Chips Act, right?
Yep, roughly €1 billion in subsidies.
Yeah.
And this fab is critical because they're focusing on power semiconductors.
Which is absolutely necessary given that AI data center electricity consumption is set to double by 2030.
Exactly. You need the power chips to handle that grid load without melting the servers. And then at the same time, we're seeing India's emergence in the supply chain.
Right, the India Semiconductor mission.
Yeah. iMark Engineering outlined that India has now reached 12 approved facilities with $20 billion in investment.
That's a massive acceleration.
It is. The key callouts are the 91,000 crore rupee Tata TSMC 300mm fab in Dhalara and Micron's $2.75 billion facility in Sanand.
Okay, so they're securing the base of the supply chain with 28-nanometer to 110-nanometer mature nodes.
Exactly.
But let me throw an analogy at you here and tell me if this makes sense.
Go for it.
It feels like the industry is building both Formula One cars, like Intel's 14A and the heavy-duty trucks like Infineon and India at the exact same time.
That's a good way to look at it.
But with memory prices soaring, are we headed for a massive oversupply in mature nodes while the bleeding edge stays bottlenecked?
That is a really valid concern. If all these 28-nanometer fabs in India come online and flood the market, right as consumer electronics demand softens because of those 75% NAND price hikes?
Yeah, we could see a brutal oversupply crash in legacy silicon.
Right, well, AI logic stays artificially scarce. It's a huge structural risk. Okay, if you zoom out from everything we just covered, there's a clear thread.
Yeah, there really is.
The entire silicon supply chain is completely bending to the will of AI demand. We're seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, from the financial shockwaves of NAND prices and the HBM4 ramps.
To the geopolitical maneuvering around the H200 in China.
And, of course, the physical concrete being poured for high-NA EUV testing and those new global hubs in Dresden and Dhalara.
Exactly. It's rewiring everything. Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over this week.
What's that?
Will the global semiconductor market permanently bifurcate into an ultra-expensive AI premium tier and a starved legacy tier? And if so, how is that going to fundamentally change how everyday consumer tech is priced?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, honestly. It's a scary thought for the average consumer.
Very scary. Well, before we go, what are you watching next week?
So I am watching to see if TSMC responds to Intel's successful high-NA EUV testing by accelerating their own ASML orders. They can't just let Intel sit alone with that single exposure capability.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to watch.
What about you?
I am keeping a close eye on whether consumer electronics brands start issuing profit warnings. I mean, as that 75% NAND price surge eats their margins, somebody has to break.
Oh, absolutely. They can't absorb that cost forever.
That's your Tech Room for this week. I'm Jess.
And I'm Mark. This podcast is produced by SBN Media Studio. Subscribe, leave a review, and we'll see you next Sunday.